welcome everyone to the launch coverage of Axiom Mission 3, also known as AX3. The clock is actively counting down at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and our 4 all-European crew members are already on board and strapped into Dragon, preparing for liftoff from Launch Complex 39A. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Rackham, Spacesuit Ventilation Lead for Axiom Space, based in Houston, Texas, and I am very excited to be covering Axiom's 3rd crewed mission to the International Space Station.
And I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX. It's so great to have you back with us once again,
Thank you,
John.
Kate. I'm excited.
We're here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, with SpaceX Mission Control Center just behind us, actually live view there inside Dragon capsule with our AX3 crew. We're counting down to our first human spaceflight mission of 2024. AX3 follows a busy 2023 where SpaceX completed 96 missions, delivering astronauts, cargo, satellites, and other cool payloads to orbit. This includes the 2nd Axiom mission, AX2, which launched to the International Space Station in May of last year.
Yeah, that's right, Kate. 2023 was a significant year for Axiom Space, which saw progress on the development of Axiom Station, as well as our lunar spacesuits for NASA and the Artemis program. And as you mentioned, all of this was punctuated by the success of our AX2 mission, which saw 3 new astronauts fly to orbit under the command of Peggy Whitson.
Flight computer is now transitioning to pad hatch closed. And as a final reminder, ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Copy all, Jake, and please thank the advanced team and the closeout team for their fine work today.
You got it, Mike. I'll relay the message.
All right, so there on the right-hand side of your screen, that's SpaceX Core or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer for today. That's Jake Vendel. We'll be hearing him communicate with the crew quite often today, as he is the primary voice to the crew, both while they are in space as well as still on the ground, as we see them here. That's a live view between our commander, Michael López-Alegría, and our pilot, Walter Villaday, there on the left-hand side of your screen. So, John, you were talking about Peggy Whitson. I am a big fan of Peggy, and it was just so awesome to see her in the commander's chair for that AX2 mission.
I know, I'm super excited as well, Kate. So, you were talking there about the core. Let's go ahead and take a look at our crew who's on Dragon today. All right, well, this crew is the first all-European crew. We have our commander MLA, Michael López-Alegría, but beyond that, it's noteworthy to note that the AX3 is the first all-European commercial crew to visit the orbiting lab, including the first astronaut from the country of Turkey. So we have a lot of ground to cover today, but our immediate focus is those 4 astronauts that you see on the screen. So let's go ahead and introduce them to you now. As I mentioned, first up, the commander of our flight today, Michael López-Alegría, or MLA, is no stranger to human spaceflight. He is a dual citizen of the United States and Spain. AX3 marks his 6th mission to space, having completed 3 space shuttle flights and a Soyuz mission as a NASA astronaut, prior to commanding AX1 with Axiom Space. MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks.
We're commencing a health check for the launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer change, and then we'll go back to pad hatch closed.
Good copy, Jake.
MLA holds the NASA record for both the total number of spacewalks, or EVAs, and the cumulative amount of time spent conducting spacewalks. In 2020, he was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and today, when he's not in low Earth orbit, MLA serves as Axiom Space's chief astronaut.
Our pilot on today's flight, Colonel Walter Villaday from the Italian Air Force, is taking his inaugural trip to low Earth orbit. Villaday currently serves in the Italian Air Force and as head of the Italian Air Force's representative office in the United States. He has completed cosmonaut training as a space engineer, participated in multiple analog training missions, and flown a variety of aircraft and missions as an active flight engineer in the Italian Air Force. This mission is significant for Italy in that it commemorates the 100th year since the founding of the Italian Air Force.
And our 3rd crew member for today's mission is mission specialist Alper İziraçe. Through this mission, Alper becomes the first Turkish astronaut to go to space. With 15 years of experience across a myriad of aircraft for the Turkish Air Force, İziraçe got his start in the Air Force Academy in Istanbul, Turkey, and earned a master's degree from the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology. He then flew as a commercial airline captain for several years before returning to duty in the Turkish Air Force. And on a further note, this mission marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of Turkey.
And finally, we have mission specialist Marcus Want, a lieutenant colonel in the Swedish Air Force. He flew 9 years as a fighter pilot and graduated from the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at the top of his class. In November of 2022, Marcus was selected by the European Space Agency, or ESA, as an astronaut reserve. However, with the AX3 mission, he becomes the first project astronaut in ESA's history, a new designation in their ranks. In just a few short hours, he'll be only the 2nd ESA astronaut of Swedish nationality to ever go to the International Space Station, a milestone marked in a year of jubilee as the 500th anniversary of the founding of the country of Sweden.
So as you can see there, this crew has an immense amount of training behind them, both individually and as a team. They bring years and years of experience and preparation to this mission, and together they make up that first all-European crew, each proudly representing their respective nations. Missions like AX3 help expand that path to low Earth orbit and open up the doors to others to follow. So this crew's prepared, they're now strapped in and ready, so let's recap how they got to this point. Yeah, those are pretty wise words from John Schaffner there from AX2.
Yeah, it's just so fun to see everybody's cheers. Space really is for everyone, including everyone that loves the people going to space. So.
Mission operators on countdown. Polling is complete. Both Dragon and Falcon teams have pulled go for launch escape arm, propellant load, and launch. Stay by for abort instructions. T-minus 45 minutes. Both control rooms go into lockdown and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbit insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold, hold, hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. Launch control at this time. You may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Launch control copies, proceeding with arming crew arm for movement.
Well, there you heard it. We are go to proceed with propellant load in just under 10 minutes.
Crew arm retract has started.
And we are beginning to retract that crew access arm. Both the Falcon 9 and Dragon are go for launch. Wow, great view of that on your screen right now. And in a moment, we should hear some additional directions from our launch director to the team. Now, of course, the crew is currently on board, again, with that great view of the crew access arm moving away from Dragon. They're at historic Launch Pad 39A. So now the range continues to be go for launch, and we're monitoring the clearance area around the launch pad, as well as air and sea space around the flight corridor. Even though we have been keeping an eye on some possible storm cells near the launch site, the conditions are predicted to be acceptable for launch. Downrange landing zones, if needed for an escape, are also go.
It's going great, Sonia. Thank you very much for that. You know, hearing all that different research really kind of cements how important and unique each mission is, right? Each mission has its own suite of research. It has its own crew that makes up that mission. And mission patches really are a way of showing that symbolism and showing how unique that is, right? So they end up everywhere. There's one in that Dragon capsule. There's a few in that Dragon capsule now, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they end up in white rooms. They end up on orbit. They end up on laptops and notebooks. It's a very big deal for crew to be central in helping design this patch because it's such a lasting mark of their dedication and hard work. And the AX3 crew has put their mark on spaceflight history with the AX3 mission patch. All 4 astronauts are highlighted by their names, a star, and unique graphics for each nation that they represent. With the commander, Michael López-Alegría, holding dual citizenship, 5 national flags mark the top edge. The destination, the International Space Station, is the anchoring element in the middle. And interesting to note, the ISS resembles pilot's wings, so it should be no surprise, given that all 4 members are indeed pilots. Along the bottom of the patch, we see the mission's motto, the phrase plus ultra, in Latin meaning further beyond. So together, all of this builds on the mission's theme of exploration and its slogan, exploring further without borders.
Yeah, like you said, they do end up everywhere. My personal favorite place is there inside the capsule. There's 2 patches in there, one from the Crew 4 mission and one, of course, from the AX2 mission, which also took this capsule to space. So I think it's safe to say that we're going to be flying so much that we are going to potentially run out of space for patches.
Come on the back of the seats, maybe.
Yeah. Now, the SpaceX teams have teams all across, or SpaceX has teams all across the country supporting our missions in key roles, and they're in key locations, such as our mission director, our core or crew operations and resource engineer, which you see there on your screen now. And these people are very important. We keep talking about the countdown, and this launch countdown is the framework that syncs all of these teams up together. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've heard a lot of that today, right? As we're talking, we're hearing these loops or nets, right, of all these flight controllers talking. That's because communication is key. The entire mission, from launch, on orbit, all the way back down to splashdown, is a tightly choreographed dance between all of those parties. And that's where communication comes in.
For sure. It's precise communication specifically is paramount throughout the mission in order to be successful, not just for today and on the way to the station, but continually for the next 2 weeks, all the way through splashdown. Like I mentioned before, we have another team supporting the capsule that's on station for Crew 7. So yeah, it's all the way through until the mission is complete.
Exactly, and highlighting that communication, you see those 2 teams just on your screen there. Those are 2 of the many that work together. So to help facilitate that comm, Axiom Space is connected with that entire network of participants through MCCA in Houston, our mission control center at Axiom headquarters. That's what you see on the right there. And from SpaceX, NASA, and other international space agencies and researchers, we can talk together. So there are teams monitoring and participating in this mission around the world, including mission controllers in Japan and across Europe. When you all add it up, it really is a truly international endeavor.
Yeah. Now, speaking of international, let's check back in with International Space Station Mission Control Center at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Courtney, how are things looking over there?
Hey, Kate. The space station team here in Houston is focused on the critical systems on the station, all continuing to function as expected ahead of launch. The teams have verified the command path from the ground up through our constellation of communication satellites to the station, and everything is looking good, and the station will be ready to receive Dragon Saturday morning. Now, once the AX3 crew arrives at the station, there will officially be 7 nations aboard the station. They will be greeted by the Expedition 70 crew, NASA astronauts Andy Mogensen, Jasmine McBelly, and Laurel O'Hara, Roscosmos cosmonauts Konstantin Borisov, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub, and JAXA astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. And once Dragon is fully docked to the station, the team here in Houston will assist the Axiom Space and Space Station astronauts with leak checks as they work to open hatches on both the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch opening to take place approximately 2 hours after docking. Flight directors Diane Daly and Diana Trujillo are on console now, leading flight controllers for launch, and flight director Judd Freeling will lead teams for docking on Saturday. Mission control in Houston is go for launch. Now with that, let's connect with Sonia at Kennedy Space Center.
Great view of our AX3 crew there, strapped in and ready for liftoff just over 10 minutes from now.
Dragon SpaceX, confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, the displays are so configured, and do you mind if our safety works with it?
MLA, I do not mind at all. You've got the floor.
So first I want to thank our partners who had the vision and the conviction to help Axiom open access to humans to low Earth orbit, and they are the Italian Air Force and its various ministries of its government, the Space Technologies Research Institutes of Turkey, TÜBİTAK, and the Turkish Space Agency and its ministry, as well as the Swedish National Space Agency in tandem with ESA. And I also want to thank the team. If you're listening to this through an earpiece sitting in Hangar X and Launch Control or in Hawthorne Mission Control, you're on the team. And the same is true of people who will be sitting at those consoles and consoles just like them in Mission Control in Houston and the Payload Operations and Integration Center in Huntsville. Same is true for all the trainers that helped us get where we are today with the crew ready to launch. And of course the engineers, technicians, managers, and executives who over decades designed, assembled, and are now operating the most complex vehicle in the world that we have the privilege to go visit. Same is true for the visionaries who conceived and developed this amazing rocket that we're sitting on and the beautiful and capable capsule that we're sitting in. And if you're in the Rescue Ops Center, you guys are on the team. And of course, so are our friends and families who have given us their love and support from the very first step of this journey. And last but not least, the team at Axion Space, the people who have poured their blood, sweat, and tears into this. To the four of us that are lucky enough to man the good ship Freedom at this point, are humbled to be on the team. We're grateful to our teammates, and we are go for launch. Plus ultra.
Copy all, Mike. As we just tick through T-minus 8 minutes, I'll let you know you got a whole bunch of people rooting for you here and indeed all over the world. Godspeed, Axiom 3.
Some really nice words there coming to us from Commander Michael López-Alegría. We are now approaching 7 minutes until liftoff of the AX3 crew. The next event that we'll hear is that Stage 1 engine chill has begun.
Engine chill has started.
And just on time, that call out tells us that we are now flowing a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the engines, through those turbo pumps to help bring the temperature down of that hardware. This helps us to reduce any chance of thermal shock whenever the full flow of that super chilled liquid oxygen flows into the engines. LOX load continues for Falcon 9. We're fully...
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
So good call outs there that we have completed loading RP1, which is a highly refined type of kerosene on board Stage 1 of Falcon 9. You've got that great view on your screen. As we mentioned earlier, Falcon 9 is an RP1 and liquid oxygen fueled vehicle, so LOX fueling continues on the vehicle on both the first and second stage. Blue skies there at the launch site. We're launching out pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. We are 60% go for those weather conditions, which we're always keeping an eye on around the Florida airspace. Next event that we have coming up is the terminal count for Dragon. This involves a couple of things, but primarily just means that Dragon will be transitioning to internal power. Great view there of the Dragon capsule, as well as the Dragon trunk, which is the unpressurized section just below the pressurized section, which of course is where we have the crew sitting. Propellant remains underway. We are completely loaded with all of our RP1, that rocket grade kerosene. We're still underway.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
So like Kate mentioned, we are heading into terminal count, and Falcon 9 is ready for that configuration. We also just heard the call out that the Falcon 9 tanks are pressurized for strong back retraction. The strong back is that white structure you see to the right of the vehicle right now. That's used not only to connect the vehicle's umbilicals, but also as a structural support system.
The strong back is retracting?
Up until it begins to retract, which we just heard the call out for here. That's the mechanism we use both to move the rocket out to the launch side and pull it into its vertical orientation ahead of launch. Now we'll keep an eye on it as it retracts slightly here on your screen.
We'll be able to see those clamp arms begin to open. And there they are now. And then that strong back will retract a couple degrees away. It will retract even further upon ignition of the engines to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. As I mentioned before, RP1 is completely loaded onto the vehicle. We're still loading liquid oxygen onto the first and second stage. And obviously some happy cheers as the crowd is growing outside of Mission Control Hawthorne, as you see there on your screen. It's always awesome to have an astronaut launch, but especially one during the day.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
With that confirmation, we know that Stage 1 is fully loaded. Team is thrilled to hear that news behind me. At liftoff, Stage 1 combined between that RP1.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There is confirmation that Dragon is on internal power and headed into the final minutes of our countdown. As I was saying earlier, at liftoff, Falcon 9 will be burning nearly 700 gallons of fuel per second. Great views there, too, of our crew inside Dragon, awaiting liftoff just over 2 minutes from now.
We're We're now standing by for completion of LOX load on the second stage. Just topping off. And there's that call out. And more cheers from our crowd here at Hawthorne, California.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Confirmation there that Dragon is in auto idle. Wow, great view of 39A on your screen right there as we head toward launch.
Gas close up and started. Expect loud venting.
Call out to our crew there that loud venting is expected.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's that
Dragon is in countdown.
confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup and Dragon is in countdown, which means that the vehicles are now controlling the final seconds as we lead up to liftoff.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
And there's confirmation from our flight director.
Go for launch.
We are go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engine full power. And liftoff. Go Axiom 3.
Further beyond, opening the door for more to follow. Godspeed AX3.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Of course, if you are just joining us, this is the launch of the Axiom 3 launch to the International Space Station. Those incredible views on your screen, and there's our first shot of the AX3 crew inside Dragon on ascent. Now, in just a few seconds here, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9...
power and telemetry. Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out that Falcon 9's engines are throttling down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure during ascent.
Max Q.
There's that call out for Max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is going faster than the speed of sound. Now, at this point, we will begin to throttle Falcon 9's engines back up.
Stage 1 throttle up.
There's that call out for mission control as well, as our AX3 crew continues on their way to space.
We're now T plus 1 minute and 32 seconds into flight. The next event we have is MVAC chill, similar to what...
MVAC chill underway.
There's that call telling us that, again, we're flowing a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
That call there was one of the abort mode callouts that the crew is calling out as they are making their ascent on Falcon 9. Now, we're less than 30 seconds or a few seconds away from 4 events that will happen in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, as it's there on the bottom of your screen, stage separation, ignition of the first stage engine, and the first stage's boost back burn.
Stage 1 throttle down.
That call telling us that the engines are beginning to throttle down.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
SpaceX Dragon 2 Alpha.
Some loud cheers here as we can see that the
Stage 1 boost back startup.
first and second stages have separated. A beautiful view there. The brighter light is the second stage under power of the MVAC engine. That first stage booster is now heading back toward the Florida coast. One thing I love about daylight launches is we're going to get some amazing views. We should be able to see the Space Coast come back into view as the first stage gets closer and closer to landing zone 1. Note that that first stage is actually still coasting to its apogee. So it's about, as you can see there on your screen, 114, 115 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And it's going to keep coasting for a little bit. Beautiful view there on the right-hand side of your screen of that
Stage
MVAC
one,
engine.
boost back, shut down.
All right, that boost back burn has concluded on the first stage. Everything looks nominal with the second stage trajectory. Everything also looking good.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Everything looking good on the first stage as well as we see those grid fins begin to deploy.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Now, the next two major events we're tracking for the first stage, which right now is on the left-hand side of your screen, is going to be the entry burn at about T plus 6.5 minutes, where we'll light 3 of Falcon 9's first stage engines, followed shortly thereafter by the landing burn at T plus 7 minutes and 32 seconds, which will be a single engine burn to bring us back to landing zone 1 at Kennedy Space Center. Great view there of our crew on board. And you can, of course, always keep an eye on their telemetry down in the bottom corner of your screen. At this point, we should be just about a minute and a half away from that entry burn
Dragon,
start.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Good call-outs there that we continue on a nominal trajectory with Dragon.
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
And acknowledgement from the crew. These are incredible views on your screen right here. Again, the left-hand side of your screen is stage 1, making its way back to Florida. And stage 2, you see that MVAC engine burning, taking our AX3 crew to orbit. That entry burn we're waiting on here is going to be a relatively quick burn, and what we're doing with our first stage is effectively scrubbing off some of that velocity as we come in for landing.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
That's a nominal trajectory for Dragon as we continue to orbit.
Dragon, we copy.
Again, confirmation from the crew. And we are expecting about 2.5 more minutes from that second engine burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
As we heard the call out, that entry burn has concluded. The next burn will be the landing burn. As I mentioned before, we're heading back to landing zone 1. We're going to come through the clouds right now.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Everything continues to look nominal
SpaceX Dragon, we copy.
for the second stage there on the right-hand side of your screen. These views really are breathtaking. Such clear, crisp views of both the first stage on the left and the second stage on the right. Right through with these clouds should be our first view. Once again, there it is. Just like magic, we see landing zone 1. Crowds cheering here at SpaceX Mission Control Hawthorne as we tune in to see if we stick the landing. And if you couldn't tell by the loud cheers, we did
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
We did stick that landing. Falcon 9 has landed once again. But turning our attention back to the crew, as you see there, our next event is second engine cutoff, or SECO, as it's referred to there at the bottom of your screen. Second stage will coast for a few minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate. A lot of just the energy here at SpaceX Mission Control is buzzing. You can hear commentary behind us. Right now, the crew is experiencing about 3 Gs, so pretty much a roller coaster for those thrill seekers out there.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
And we are about 20 seconds away from that second engine cutoff. MLA will know this feeling very well, this experience of going from now almost 4 Gs to...
SpaceX Dragon Shannon.
To...
Copy, Shannon.
As another abort mode there being called out. Now standing by for second engine cutoff.
Invex shutdown. Dragon, SpaceX, you're in a nominal orbit.
There we heard those call outs of second engine shutdown and nominal orbital insertion.
Launch escape system disarmed.
And the disarming of our launch escape system. That, of course, means that our AX3 crew is getting their first experience here in microgravity. Right now, Dragon is performing a series of onboard checks to ensure that we're ready to begin actuating those Draco maneuvering thrusters on board the vehicle. Now, as we prepare for Dragon separation, we should have a great camera view here in just a couple of minutes. Oh, wow, and beautiful views of the Earth, and our MVAC engine up there in orbit as well. Views there as we await that separation. Absolutely incredible images that we are getting back from up in space as we await Dragon separation in just about a minute. More views there of our AX3 crew on board Dragon. We are now just about 30 seconds away from that anticipated Dragon separation. Starting to see the crew there play a little bit with the fact that they are operating in microgravity. And a great shot of mission control here in our headquarters at Hawthorne, California. This camera view here is taking a look at Dragon. What we're waiting for is nose cone deployment, among other things, which, as Kate mentioned earlier, there we go.
Dragon separation confirmed.
As you can see, Dragon has separated from the second stage. A pretty cool view here looking up at the heat shield that will return the AX3 crew back to Earth in just about 2 weeks. So this is our first view of AX3 flying free. The next physical change that we will see will be the deployment of the nose cone. That will take...
Dragon, this is the SpaceX Falcon team. We want to congratulate you on a great ride to orbit. I think you're demonstrating the ultimate in reuse, a reused Commander, a reused Dragon, and a reused Falcon. Or maybe flight experience is a better word. Enjoy space.
And Axiom 3.
No, Durst, and as I was saying, it's a team sport. Thank you, guys.
Axiom 3, this is your launch director here. Walter, Alper, and Marcus. Congrats, welcome to your first flight on Dragon. Mike, on the other hand, welcome to the Dragon Frequent Flyer Club. I imagine you'll have enough miles to qualify for platinum status after this flight. Godspeed, Axiom 3, cheers.
Mark, thanks to you and your team. We're very grateful up here.
So some back and forth between the AX3 crew as well as AX3 Chief Engineer Bill Gerstenmayer, who, oh, I heard the ping. That is our first Quindar tone of AX3. Fun fact, Bill Gerstenmayer was actually chief engineer on AX1, which is the mission that MLA was also commander of. So if you want to talk about reuse, we also have some reuse on our side as well. We also heard some nice words from launch director Mark Soltis. So just some really nice communication from both the Falcon team and the Dragon team to the AX3 crew.
And with that, our AX3 crew is in orbit and on their way to the International Space Station. Obviously, great views of the crew there. And now mission control, again, that's...
SpaceX Dragon. Jake, any chance you could encode one of the centerline cameras? We could watch the nose cone.
The crew's getting right into it. I love it.
Dragon, we copy on the request. And Dragon, we expect that will automatically happen in the state machine here imminently.
So with that, we are going to throw it back over
We see Hooks still traveling.
Okay, we stand by.
Great views there of our crew, again, on their way to the International Space Station. And already getting right down to the business of operating Dragon. You can still see a huge number of our team gathered behind mission control.
Dragon, SpaceX, we see nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
And confirmation that we're getting nominal checkouts of those Draco thrusters on board Dragon.
Copy, Jake. And for your awareness, we have visors open, crew are well, feeling well.
Copy, great news.
So for those of you that have just recently tuned in, AX3 is in space. The crew is experiencing their first taste of microgravity. Here is a view of our MVAC engine, which has been shut down. The crew has actually separated away from the second stage, which is where that MVAC engine is located. We are standing by for nose cone deployment. This takes a few minutes to complete as there are two sets of hooks that need to be opened independently of each other. By deploying the nose cone, we are able to expose the docking mechanism, which is, of course, what the crew will utilize, what Dragon will utilize to autonomously dock with the International Space Station. Overall, it was a pretty smooth flight all the way through countdown to liftoff. We're now approaching 17 and a half minutes into flight. Once again, the next milestone will be to deploy the nose cone. This is basically the last physical change that Dragon will undergo in order to begin its journey. Well, not really begin, it's already on the way, but in order to be ready for its approach to the International Space Station. All right, so it's hard to see at the moment because the camera is still close to the hardware, but this is the nose cone opening. Slow and steady wins the race. Of course, when you're in space, every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So for very good reasons, we don't just fling the thing open. It's very slow and steady. Again, this allows us to expose the docking mechanism, the hardware that will be utilized to dock with the International Space Station. That hatch, which is the forward hatch, will then be opened, and that's how the crew will get in and out of Dragon while it is up at the space station for the next 2 weeks. So that side hatch, which is where we saw the crew, or technically they were already in by the time that we started our broadcast, but the crew did ingress Dragon today, just a couple hours ago, through that side hatch. That remains closed. That won't open again until they are safely back on Earth on our recovery ship. So this nose cone that we see here slowly being opened is basically opening the first part of a multi-system door for them to get in and out of the International Space Station. I mentioned before that docking is autonomous. That means that Dragon does the steering itself. Our pilot, Walter Vilade, has the training and the capability to take control if necessary, but nominally speaking, Dragon flies on autopilot. It does the thinking and the calculation itself, which at the end of the day is ultimately much safer than human steering, as there's more, humans are prone to error because we are human. So that's a live view there of SpaceX Mission Control Center here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. It is in the middle of our workday, so of course, many folks have returned to their positions, their desks, their job, and they are continuing to do what we do best, and that's build spacecraft and rockets and send people to space, just like we have done today. So with that, let's check in over with Courtney, who is standing by at the ISS Mission Control Center in Houston. Courtney, how are things looking over there? It's over to you.
Hey, Kate, everything is great. What a beautiful launch today. And with today's successful launch of AX3, the teams at NASA's Johnson Space Center will be monitoring Dragon's flight to the International Space Station over the next 36 hours. NASA's role in this journey really kicks in at a period called Integrated Operations, where Dragon is much closer to the station. At this point, NASA, SpaceX, and Axiom Space teams are all in lockstep to get the crew safely docked. The teams here are preparing for a docking of AX3 to the station on Saturday morning. For now, that will be it from us in Mission Control Houston, and we'll be back with you Saturday for docking. And for now, we'll send it back to you, Kate and John.
Thanks, Courtney. And we did hear that we had nominal opening of the nose cone, so that is great news. Yeah. Now, over the next 30 hours, 30 plus hours really, Dragon will execute a series of burns to gradually raise and line up the AX3 crew for docking with the International Space Station and what we refer to as the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. In just a few minutes, the crew will change out of their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfortable for flight, and something that would be my favorite part, enjoy their first meal aboard the spacecraft. Over the course of their flight, they will have a rest period that will last for about 8 hours. Before they arrive at the space station, we will have 2 potential opportunities to chat briefly with the crew on orbit, one around 3:15 p.m. Pacific and another around 6:20 p.m. Pacific.
Dragon SpaceX, environments look good for suit doffing, and the cabin camera is soon to be configured. Your go for suit doffing.
Copy. We'll put 4.012 in work.
All right, so that call out there just saying that the crew is clear to take off their suits. As I had mentioned, they're able to get a little bit more comfortable for the upcoming journey. Now, we were talking about some on-orbit opportunities to chat with the crew. While we are hopeful that one of those opportunities will work out, neither opportunity is guaranteed, as they are unfortunately dependent on both crew schedule and ground station coverage. However, if we are able to support, we'll make an announcement on our social media channels no later than 15 minutes before the event start time. In the meantime, be sure to keep tabs on the mission at axiomspace.com, and you can also track...
And Dragon cameras are external.
You can also track Dragon's flight on spacex.com/launches.
Right, like you mentioned, Kate, even if we aren't able to talk live with the crew, we will continue to provide updates on the mission across our social media channels. And then, as Dragon and the AX3 crew approach the International Space Station early on the morning of January 20th, we will pick back up with our live joint coverage of the AX3 crew's docking to station with NASA. So please keep an eye on Axiom and SpaceX social channels for updates, as there will be plenty of incredible moments to share with you over the course of their mission. So from all of us at Axiom Space, thank you SpaceX, thank you NASA, and thank you for tuning in. This is just the beginning, and we hope to see you soon.